We're on the Groom Pod, but we're also on the Creating Great Grooming Dog show. And I'm Christy Newmeyer Smith, and I'm a master groomer behavior specialist, a master certified grooming expert, a certified professional groomer, certified behavior consultant for canines, certified professional dog trainer, blah, 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 so many things. And I'm an educator and the dean of academics at the Whole Pet Grooming Academy. And my show is about teaching dogs to be good for grooming and other types of care.
Hello, groomers. You found the Groom Pod. Welcome to our virtual salon. My name is Susie, and I'm your host. I'm a mobile groomer from Seattle, Washington, and anybody who knows me will tell you I love to talk, especially about my job. And one of my favorite people to talk to is my friend and mentor and the co-star of this show, the curator of ingredients, Miss Barbara Bird. Well, Barbara Bird is taking a much needed preparation week for the webinar. She's working on the webinar. So, as an exciting change, Chrissy Newmeyer Smith is going to be recorded on video so you guys can actually watch. Yay, the Groom Pod. So, welcome to episode 451 of the Groom Pod, recorded on June 29th, 2025 in Snohomish, Washington and Nashua, New Hampshire. So, Chrissy, you had the pleasure of attending and participating in the U.S. Pet Pro Classic, which had a behavior focus.
It did have a behavior focus.
Tell me what it was like, because all those behavior type people in one spot, it must have just been dog grooming heaven.
We had a lot of fun.
And Chrissy is my behavior mentor, and I think the best behavior speaker out there. So I'm always honored to have her on. So they did hire you to speak, right? You did some speaking at the Pet Pro Classic?
I did. I had a lot of fun. We talked about it, I think last year at the Pet Pro Classic, or maybe before, about having more behavior stuff and really taking that in a much more serious route instead of just being the occasional class. And they had 2 full days of behavior at the Pet Pro Classic this year. And each day was like 5 classes. I taught 5 classes on Saturday. 5.
That's impressive.
It's a lot. And one of them wasn't in the behavior track. One of them was on the business track. So it was about, so you're a business owner, how do we integrate this behavior stuff into making your business choices? So,
boy, that's a big part of being a behavior type focused specialist, because charging for the time you spend with the dogs in training is as valuable as the time you spend with the haircuts. And it's not always about the haircuts.
I think a lot of groomers feel pressured to do beautiful haircuts because they're still thinking we're selling haircuts, but we're selling haircutting services. And just trying to help people, even if the only thing they gather from this is that, oh, wait a minute, they're haircutting services. And many of these dogs are not well prepared for our services, so we need to sell them behavior services. Don't go broke. No one's asking you to do this for free. Charge what you're worth. Decide if it's something you want to offer or not. I mean, not all of us do hand scissoring or hand stripping. You don't have to do behavior stuff. But a lot of groomers, I feel, are really pressured to get trims done, and it's not safe.
Were the classes well attended? Like, are we seeing an upswing in the interest?
Yeah. And I was pleased that it was a really good audience. They were really involved, and many of them had never heard of my show.
Wow. How is that even possible?
I know, thanks. But they were like, wait, what? Hold on. Let me write that down. So that's good. That means that I'm getting fresh faces who aren't like, oh, yeah, I want to attend Chrissy's class because I know what Chrissy teaches. Now I'm seeing people who are like, I'm interested in behavior and like, oh, I think I'm going to sit down for 5 hours of Chrissy, which was a lot. I can't do 5 hours of Chrissy. I don't know how anybody else did. So a lot of Chrissy. That's a lot of hand puppets and goofing around. But I am a big goof, so we have fun.
That's what I like about you. So you have a lighthearted approach to a very serious topic. So did you get to do networking? Like, did you get to hang out with people who are interested in behavior? Or not so much?
I did. We hung out a lot in between classes. Because of stuff happening in my personal life, I wasn't able to attend the full conference. So I did a travel day, a teaching day, and another travel day. So I didn't get as much as I wanted to because there was a lot of really great stuff there. A couple people I never even got a chance to run into because of stuff happening at home, which is good. I mean, high school graduations and things like that. But it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And I loved the interest in the behavior part. I think we tend to think about grooming conferences and how to make pretty round heads, but do we need 5,000 versions of how to make a round head?
That's true. And answering the same question over and over again. I think it's great to have different stuff, opportunities to learn about business, opportunities to learn about behavior, opportunities to learn about skin and coat. So important. So let's head right on to learning about Chrissy. We're going to learn a little bit about Chrissy and all of her certifications. We were actually talking a little bit about certification before we turn on the microphones. So it is a topic that inspires both of us to chat quite a bit off topic. So let's talk about some of the certifications you have. You've got Master Groomer Behavior Specialist, which I have too. And that's the program that you're teaching at Whole Pet Academy. And
Yep.
that certification is running kind of ongoing, isn't it?
Yes. So that's actually a diploma program, a little bit different than a certification. It's formal education through a school. So the comparison I make, because groomers tend to think about certifications, the comparison I make is that no one asks me to do anything more on my associate's degree. Like nobody's like, are you still doing creative arts? Your associate's degree is yours forever. Your diploma is yours forever. It's through a licensed post-secondary trade school through New Hampshire, so recognized as real education. But that program is 32 weeks long. It's 4 8-week classes. It takes you about 8 months to complete. And we dive deep into how to work behavior cases as dog groomers. So it doesn't mean you're a dog trainer at the end, but it does mean that you are well versed in cooperative care, consent grooming, and those kind of finer points that many of us as groomers expose ourselves to but don't really know about. Is that a
And
good
there's
answer?
testing and all. Yes, there's
Yeah.
testing and all kinds of stuff. I was so
Weekly Zoom
intimidated.
calls. Yeah,
Yes,
weekly Zoom calls where we're actually discussing it. So it's a
yes.
live class.
It is a live class and it is
Yeah.
a lot more than just a certification. It actually really changes the way you think about grooming and the way you interact with the dogs and the way you interact with the people. So I highly recommend it.
Thank
You're
you.
also a
I've been
master.
I was going to
Go
say,
ahead.
I also have had a number of people say that that first level, they start using stuff right away. I think people start thinking, like, well, what do I get at the end? But I started having people write testimonials for me at the end of the first level because what they're finding is that they start using it and they're like, this is really changing the way I think about what I'm doing and the processes I use and the tools that I reach for.
It's magic. I'm telling you. It's really, especially if you have any interest in all in dogs that have a difficult time with the process, this is definitely a good place to go to learn more. And if you want just some free information that'll help you with your grooming every day, it's Chrissy's podcast, Creating Great Grooming Dogs, which I find to be really fun and interesting and goofy, and you learn something, and it also changes the way you groom for sure. It's really amazing. So, what's a master canine stylist?
So, Master Canine Stylist is a new program we started at Whole Pet Grooming Academy. I think that many of us in the grooming world have wanted to do master level, but we don't do show dogs and we don't see purebred dogs, and that has made it out of reach. And at the Whole Pet, we kind of decided, well, other people are doing it that way. Let them be the best at doing that version. We came up with a program that is testing out of grooming school, doing all of the things, all of the assignments that you would need to do to prove that you could pass the Master Canine Stylist at a grooming school. So you can test out on the dogs that you groom. You can test out with your current clientele. Everybody has like some little dog that they do a cute scissor head or something cute. You don't need to have a terrier in show coat. You don't need to do all of that stuff, but also the bigger emphasis on cleanliness, on anatomy and physiology, on your business, on having testimonials and references and making sure that you are presenting yourself as the kind of professional that really should charge a lot of money for your work.
I like that. Then, master certified grooming expert.
So that one is IAPEG. The school, we kind of paired up with them to try to come up with a certification that requires continuing ed. This has been a bee in my bonnet for years that the grooming industry doesn't require continuing education to maintain certifications. Certifications are supposed to be a way to continue your professional development. You're supposed to take your professional credentials and then pool it together and see what the rest of the industry is doing. So if you went to like trade school XYZ and then you get into the professional world and they're like, oh, trade school XYZ didn't teach you all the things that we expect for you as an accountant, your organization certifications build that in. And you're supposed to do continuing education to maintain it. You don't get to keep a certification forever. And yet in the grooming industry, that's what we've been doing. The training
Certainly is.
industry, yeah, and the training industry in parallel started doing more of the continuing ed. And they started that a long time ago. I got certified as a certified professional dog trainer the first year it was offered. I believe that was in 2005. And then I got the certified behavior consultant for canines the first year it was offered. And those require approved continuing ed. So 36 hours every 3 years for the dog trainer one, a different 36 hours every 5 years for the behavior consultant one. Or you can retest. And what I have observed is that the dog training industry, it became difficult to stay out of date because you have to do so many hours of continuing ed. It's what I want for groomers. Like, let's get approved continuing ed. Let's make sure that we're all staying up to date and taking our careers seriously and being taken seriously as a professional.
Excellent. I'm fully in support of that. I think continuing education is important for any trade that you're working in, whether you're an electrician or you're a dog groomer. You should always continue to learn and change and grow with the industry. So then you've got certified professional groomer.
Yep, that's the IPG one.
Okay, that's the
Yeah,
IPG.
yeah,
Certified behavior consultant for canines. That's the
yeah,
one you just talked about.
yeah. The
Certified professional
Certification
dog
Council for
trainer.
Professional Dog Trainers offers both of those.
Okay. And then fear free certified groomer and trainer. That means you're
Yep.
teaching fear free, right?
No, that means that
Oh,
I passed the fear free course for groomers and the fear free course for trainers.
oh, they're
There are two
different.
different ones. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think a
Then,
lot of people put a lot of emphasis on those, but can I just tell you those took a weekend? I still
oh,
see like the Fear Free program as like, it's a great start. Yeah, take it. It's worth it. But also, it's a weekend. I
and it's
completed it in a
marketing.
weekend.
Yeah.
Veterinarians and the vet techs have an entirely different set of courses that they take. But the grooming one was really kind of basic, but it was good basic.
Good. That's good.
Eh.
And then SATS certified trainer. What's SATS?
That is Casey Cover's bridge and target training, Synalia
Cool.
training systems.
If
Yeah.
you're interested in Casey,
Oh,
Chrissy does a
Casey.
really cool interview with her. And I recommend listening to it twice because it's that good.
Casey Cover is one of the really, really interesting trainers out there. A lot of zoo experience, a lot of exotic animals, and she brings that into dog training in a unique way.
Yes. And she's fun to listen to. And then,
Yeah.
most importantly, I think lately is the educator and dean of academics at Whole Pet Grooming Academy. And when did you end up with that title?
Dean of Academics. I think we did
Sounds
that,
cool.
gosh. I've been doing it for about 2 years, but I don't remember when we made the name. But
Very cool.
my role at the Whole Pet is I do some teaching. So I do the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist course. I'm also one of the evaluators for the Master Canine Stylist. But I help educators come up with their courses and help fact check and help make sure that the kind of things that we're promoting through our school are up to date. And occasionally circling back and going, ooh, let's make some changes. There's new information, which is what you want from a school. That's what you want.
Yeah.
You want people who are like, oh, hey, wait a minute. Just like Barbara Bird, like, I learned something new, that we want to be up to date. So that's part of my role there.
Oh, very nice. And in case you didn't get she's generally a cool chick. So we're happy to have her here. That doesn't come with letters, but it does come with a lot of honor. So I
I'm a
think
huge
that,
goofball. That's definitely a thing.
yes. So I had fun this morning, as I do often, channeling my Barbara Bird. And I went on to AI and I asked a question and I got an interesting answer. I thought it was pretty good. So I'm going to read it. I asked AI, what does consent grooming mean? And they said, consent refers to a cooperative approach where the groomer prioritizes the dog's comfort and well being, allowing the dog to communicate its willingness, and I added, or not, to participate in the grooming process. It's all about trust and ensuring the dog feels safe and has influence on the process. What do you think of that statement?
Good answer.
I thought it was
Yeah,
pretty
good
good for
answer.
AI.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've been trying to train AI to answer that way. So,
Oh, well, it worked. Yeah, Barbara often affects the answers at AI, so I know it's possible. So that's pretty cool. We appreciate that. So, um, zoos often use consent for their treatment process and for medications. And if you watch any of the zoo shows on TV, you get to see it in actual practice with animals that people would say, well, you can't possibly train that cheetah to come over and get an insulin shot. That's absolutely crazy, but they do it. And we can do it too. We can get them to actively participate in our process also. And is consent a practical tool for grooming?
yes. Yes. I think what we have to do is we have to stop thinking about I am selling haircuts. And I know I said that earlier and I say it a lot because I think a lot of the time we're like, but he has to look great. And instead, if we're thinking about, is this dog having a pleasant experience? I stopped calling it a positive experience because I hear
Right.
that way too often. And people are like, well, we had a positive experience. We got the trim done today, and he knows I wasn't mad at him and that he didn't get hurt. But that doesn't mean the pet had a pleasant experience or that we were even working toward a pleasant experience. Because a lot of the problems that we see in dog grooming, we have accidentally created. I raise my
Boy,
hand as someone who has accidentally created them. I've made all the mistakes, which is why I don't get upset with groomers who are doing things in a different way because I'm like, oh, I've been there. I've been there. I've made that mistake. But consent grooming doesn't mean, oh, he doesn't want us to do his nails, so never mind. It's about why is he uncomfortable with us doing his nails or brushing his tail or trimming around his lip or whatever that case may be. Why is the dog uncomfortable with it? And how can we teach them to be comfortable for it for a 15-year lifespan of regular groomings? We always have to think the future too. If we can teach them to be good for it and be willing participants, then that problem behavior rarely crops up again,
I
which is
think that
pretty
it all
astounding.
starts, yeah, that's pretty amazing. I think it all starts with being able to read the body language and actually tuning into that because obviously dogs only speak when they are really pressured. Doing the growling and the barking happens kind of way late down the scale of when they're not enjoying the process, shall we say. So I think that looking for things like anxiety or licking or yawning or spatulate tongue or backing away, turning away. They may be subtle to people who don't work with dogs all day, but we do work with dogs all day and we should be able to pick up on that stuff way before they have to use their voice.
We should. And you mentioned spatulate tongue, and I think a lot of people don't know what that one is. So if a dog is panting because they are just tired or hot, their tongue looks like just a wet noodle. It's just hanging out like a banana peel. A spatulate tongue is when it's curled, like there, you could almost pool water into it, like a ladle, like a spoon, and their cheeks are flaring out differently when they're panting. It's a very different look, and it's definitely a stress pant instead of an I'm hot or I'm tired. It's really easy to miss. And sometimes I take video of myself grooming, which I encourage everyone to do. You learn a lot about yourself watching yourself groom, being a fly on the wall, watching yourself groom, and you'll notice things about behavior that maybe you didn't notice in the moment. And once in a while, I miss that. I'm like, oh, you're panting. But is a dog who's panting calm? No. So we should already be trying to help them be more calm. But sometimes that's an I'm tired, I'm stressed. Sometimes it's just I like to pant because I'm silly goose, right? Sometimes dogs will do that because they're like, I'm really silly. And they're like, because they're trying to ride that wave of being silly. But to understand the body language is huge. I know here we
I
are in
think,
audio trying to explain it too.
yes, but we're going to be video
Oh,
also. So that
that's
if you're
true.
wondering, yes, yeah,
So,
which
so
I'm not
tired
used
tongue
to.
is this.
Yes.
Spatulate tongue is this one.
I have a coated tongue. That's that.
Yeah. Rolling Stones is tired tongue.
Yes.
Wow. Say you're
So
old without saying you're old.
indeed, boy, we should get a ding for that one. So the yawning is often one
Yeah.
of the first things you see. And when a dog starts yawning, I immediately start looking for
Yeah.
what is making them stressful. Is it the environment? Is it like what happened before? The last time they
Mhm.
came in and had a grooming maybe wasn't as pleasant as we'd like. And maybe the dog is remembering that. So those are really important signs. Also, I think cowering and turning away is a big one. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just short of
Yeah.
barking at you. That's like, hey, come on.
I think as groomers, there are a lot of times where we're focused on the trimming. And sometimes our face is very stern looking because we're focused. Have you ever looked at your focus face? It's
Yeah,
not really friendly. Mine
not
isn't,
friendly.
right?
Nope.
And when I'm doing that, sometimes dogs, to calm a person down, do some very specific body language. There's the turning their head away, which, if you're trying to work on a head, might feel like that dog is just fighting you. And that dog's like, you seem mad. I'm going to keep turning my head away until you calm down. And we get more and more frustrated. Or sitting, they start to lean back and sit and maybe kind of curl their back a little bit. And we're trying to get them even. We're trying to get them to stand. And we're frustrated that they're sitting and they're sitting because we're frustrated. And it's this weird feedback loop that because we have the bigger brain and we're in charge of what happens on our grooming tables, we should step out of that loop, help them calm down, then see if we can get them to stand up again.
Barbara always says it's not possible. You cannot possibly get a dog to put their head in your hand when you're doing the and I'm like, yes, you can. Trust me. It just takes a little bit of time. I'm dealing with a dog right now that I inherited from a groomer who passed away. It's a couple of dogs. One of them is a 3-year-old Yorkie who I know the groomer that passed away, and I know that she's a force it through kind of a groomer.
Mm.
And I have been working with this dog and I got her to put her foot in my hand and I was able to trim the nails, but I caught one. And so I had a little bit of bleeding. Now, the owner worried the whole month long about me having caused pain to the dog. And she had worked it up and she came in. She said, what can we do about the nail trim? And I said, well, we are working with a dog who has a horrible fear. And she said, well, try the Dremel. Guess what? I pulled the Dremel out and the dog just freaked out. So I
Aw.
suspect there was some aggressive dremeling going on, possibly with two people because it's at a vet hospital. And I am starting from scratch with this little dog. And I tried to explain that to the owner. I said, well, I'm a new person. She doesn't know my methods and how I work. So we're going to start really slowly. And she said, well, what do we do? And I said, it's going to take time, is all. And I'm going to work with it. That's like my area of
Mhm.
expertise. So it's very practical to use these techniques and to work with the dogs and to get her better. By the end of the grooming experience, she would hand her foot to me. I didn't do the nail trim because they didn't really need to be done this time. I can save them for
Mhm.
next time. So we just worked on positively showing her that putting her foot in her hand does not always mean that she's going to get snagged up and dremeled or have her toe missed. Last time it had been quite a long time since she had been done, so I did work through it and as best as I could got her nails done, but I did miss that one toe. Doggone it, she was fine with it, but it really messed with the owner. So we
I
need to
think that I think that a lot of groomers don't realize that there's a fix, that there's a solution. So if you don't know that there's a way to teach them to be good for it, you might think, but this grooming part is so important. And we do know that nail trims are important. We do know that removing mats is important, but none of those are a medical emergency. So if it is an emergency, we should have them go to the vet for that. Maybe this dog is at a point where they do need to be knocked out as if for surgery, shave off the terrible matting and just start fresh. Wake up like, oh look, I got a haircut, and like and start fresh. But that doesn't mean that training isn't necessary or that it wouldn't work because it does. And also, I think a lot of groomers don't understand that fears don't necessarily mean that this pet was mistreated. I know humans who are terrified of blood drawing and terrified of needles who would love to get over that. Not like you can just talk them through it. Don't do that. Oh, well, that makes sense now. Like they're terrified of it and they don't know where it started and they've actively tried to work on it. Yet with our dogs, we're like, well, you're afraid of that? Oh, well, let's hold you down and get it done because it's super important. Or, I guess he's a bad dog. But sometimes they're just terrified and we don't
This
know
dog,
why.
this dog was terrified, and I definitely made a judgment only because I've been back there
Yeah,
with her and I've
of
watched her work through
course.
the dogs like that. But yeah, I think that and especially our owners, will say, "Oh, I just got this dog from a shelter. It was abused." Okay, really?
Mm.
Because I'm not seeing a dog that was abused. I'm just seeing one that's way down in the pack. That's not the stand at front. It's just not that personality that you had with your other dog. It's not that it was abused. It's
I
interesting.
I think a lot of these dogs have a lack of experience. A lot of dogs end up in shelters not because somebody was abusive or somebody was mean, but because somebody didn't have enough time with them. So they have been living in a crate in the basement or living in the garage. They never met children. They've never gone on leash walks. The whole world is new and freaky and like either super overstimulating, exciting, or maybe scary because they grew up in less than ideal conditions. That doesn't mean that someone was ever mean to them.
Very true. And it also doesn't mean that you can't get past that yourself. I've had great success using these techniques to get past and become the dog's friend. In this particular case, you just hit it on the nail. They've never been outside other than to go to the groomers at the vet every other month or whatever. And they are indoor only. They pee on pee pads. They don't have visitors. So me coming in there and wanting to do a nail trim on this dog, she was not prepared for that. And I did recognize that. And, it wasn't so much struggle that I made an impression that I wasn't able to get past. So
Mhm.
I did manage to, I think, move forward on this last grooming. It's really encouraging.
Good.
And I think that we need to respect the signals and respect the dog's ability to tolerate stuff. And I always start with medical, and probably more because you taught me, but also because I worked in a medical environment. When somebody's struggling or not having a good time with the process, make sure
Mhm.
there's not an injury or a potential for an injury that you have not recognized yet. And I think working with
Yeah.
this difficult dogs that have a difficult time with the process, injuries
When
are often a
faced with a
part of it.
behavior that you want to change, first think, is there a physical reason? Can I give an example of that?
Please do.
Yeah. We had a dog at the one salon that had just hit that teenager kind of age and he had longer coat and the owners had been really good about brushing him and bringing him in often for brushing and we were working on keeping this coat long because that's what the owners wanted. Got up toward his neck and he let out the "Ah!" Our first thought, and I don't know if Zoom probably edited that out, but the scream, right? The over dramatic. And our
As long
first
as you
thought
use the
was,
puppets.
right, the hand puppets are here, right? If you're watching live, they're hand puppets. But he let out a scream and it would be so easy. I've seen so many groomers do it, think, oh no, we don't let you get away with that. But our first thought was, are you okay? This isn't normal for this dog. And you could say, oh, well, he's a teenager and that's why they get like this at 8 months old, And I know so many groomers who would have, but our first thought was, is there a health problem? Why did you do that? And then went back to doing something else. Talked to the owners. Oh yeah, the owner's like, oh, well, he got hit by a car yesterday, but the vet said he was okay. Can you
Oh,
imagine if
hello.
we had decided to say, oh no, mister, we don't put up with that? What if we had continued to force? What if we caused damage to an already sore neck just because we weren't thinking, is there a health reason?
And oftentimes owners will not disclose this stuff. They don't tell us because for some reason they don't think it's important and the vet cleared the dog. So we
Yeah.
definitely want to tune into, a
Yeah.
dog
And
screaming
it
like
seems
that.
extreme, but then how many groomers have a story like that? We can say,
Yeah.
oh, well, how often does that happen? I'm like, but yet so many groomers have a story like that. The owner who brought him in the day after a surgery or brought him in, like, what are they even thinking? And you ask, anything new? Anything going on? No, he's fine.
Oh, everything's great.
Everything's
Yeah, no
great,
problem.
until we find that there's a problem. And some of our dogs are living in chronic pain. You know, talking to a couple of vet techs who in our flyball club, and it's like, well, some of these dogs have pain. Like, well, you guys are groomers. You're not trained for that. I'm like, do you think that dogs stop getting groomed when they have hip dysplasia? Or
Or
stop
lose
getting
a
groomed when
leg.
they have arthritis in their feet? Or stop getting groomed when they lose a bunch of teeth? And like, what are you thinking? And they're like, oh my God, I never ever thought about the fact that they continue to get groomed even as they age, even as they have these physical problems. Yet, groomers are also thinking that's a behavior problem. But is it? What modifications can we make to help an animal feel comfortable? Cooperative
What
care
is
takes two.
so what does cooperative care look like in the grooming setting? Like describe a scenario where you go start to finish in working with a dog that, say, for instance, doesn't want its face done.
Okay. So for face, first I would try to find out if there is something actually physically wrong. And maybe there is. Think about some of our little losses and Shih Tzus that have like little folds. But I'm first going to take a look. But what if I can get that dog to be calm, relax, calm them down? If you listen to my show, we talk a lot about calm, comfortable, and cooperative being a goal. That's what we should always be aiming for.
Creating great grooming dogs, creating great grooming dogs, creating great grooming dogs.
There you go. But we're always trying to help them be calm, comfortable, and cooperative. So I'm going to calm that dog down and see if I can take a closer look. See if a different tool makes a difference. See if it's my hand position. There are lots of things that we can do. A lot of dogs, if you let them relax first, will allow you to do it. I think we tend to think that dogs are refusing when really often they're like not ready, or that wasn't right. It didn't feel good when you did it that way. And yet, if we calm them down and try again, how much calmness can I bring to this? Relax. Can I touch you here? Good. Can I touch you here with a comb? Good. Can I touch you in here with a scissor? Sometimes they will let you. Sometimes we're so focused on grooming that we have forgotten that we do scary things with objects that they're not used to. It drives me crazy when I see groomers turn dryers on and clippers on next to a dog's face.
I
Most
watched
dogs
a
are going to jump. And we're like,
I
why do they jump? Like, well, why? I would jump if you just turned it on next to my face. No
I
warning.
watched a video that accidentally came across my feed that was a guy with a dog. I think it was a guy, I don't remember for sure. He was trying to shave underneath the eyes with the clippers, and the dog was just wigging out. And he kept going back in with the clippers. And I thought, try your scissors, dude. I'm sure it'll be a little less aggressive.
And reset. Calm the dog
Yeah.
down again. Reset. Just, okay, maybe I took that too far. Can I calm you down again? Can we calm down? Can we try it a different way? Can we try it from a different angle? Can we find out if maybe mommy and daddy are doing stuff at home? Often the owners are creating some of these issues that we're seeing.
Well,
Is
I'm
there a
cleaning those
physical
eye
reason?
boogies out. I'm cleaning those eye boogies out every day. I just hang on to the
Yeah.
dog's chin and I clean those eye boogies out. Okay.
I
Yeah.
ask owners, I'm like, okay, I started saying I used to ask owners what they're doing. And now I ask them what problem they're having, or I tell them the problem I'm seeing. And I say, I'm going to guess at what you're doing at home. And when I tell them, I'm guessing you close his mouth and you put your hand down over his nose and you hold it tight. And they're like, yep. I'm like, so you're choking him out. And they're like, no. Like, yeah, you're closing his mouth and pressing on his nose so he can't breathe. And you're like, it doesn't hurt. While you grind downward. And they're like, yes. I'm like, grinding downward, scraping that sensitive skin around the corner of his eye that's already irritated with your fingernail. And they're like, oh my God. So sometimes they have a fear because of handling that they're getting on a regular basis. Sometimes they have a fear because it's really sore. Sometimes they have a fear because our tool is weird, a lot of unusual tools that we use. But all of those things, if we can think about what this pet is going through and try to make this experience pleasant for them, I want you to always think, what if the dog was leaving the review?
We were talking about that a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
Sometimes they lie.
I know, right? I think most of the dogs I groom would be like, all right, well, she gets, because I'm house call. She comes in, we play a little bit, and before she leaves, we play a little bit, and then all the in between is like, oh my God, why do I need to do this?
For sure.
You know,
Yep.
what we do is tedious and it takes a long time. And as a dog trainer and a behavior consultant, I feel I'm trying to teach dog trainers because they are not well equipped to teach stuff for grooming. They think teaching a 10-minute blood draw is like, wow, look how long the endurance was. And I'm like, that is nothing. So trying to help
Nothing.
them understand nothing. Oh, 10 minutes. Wow.
Ooh.
So, woo. So when I talk to dog trainers, I'm trying to help them understand that what we're doing, and if we think about dog grooming as the very, very elaborate stand stay. So we have them
Yeah.
stand stay, and we choose to let them sit, and we choose to let them move around, but stand stay on a table, so something raised, or in a tub, which is also raised. So we stand stay. We have loads of stuff and things and equipment, a distracting environment, a person they might not know, and an endurance run of average, I'd say about 2 hours. And trainers are like, that's madness. How would you do that? And I'm like, you guys should know how to do that. So groomers get frustrated thinking dog training has nothing to offer us, but it does. And as someone who does both grooming and training, I kind of fell in love with both at the same time a long time ago. We have a lot of training stuff we can do, but some of it is just recognizing if they're stressed and not continuing.
Give them a break.
Yeah, give them a break. Back off. Go back to something they were comfortable with. There's lots to work on. Do you need to do the head in one head swoop? It's head time. I don't think we do. You know, it's nice when we can. It's nice when we can go with the flow and just do our system, the same thing over and over and over again. Dogs like to know what to expect, but some of our dogs aren't well versed in this. They're a little bit scared. And circle back. You have that dog for 2 hours. Do you need to do the entire head in one fell swoop, in one 5-minute segment? Or can you do some of the head in the beginning and do some of it in the tub and do a little bit more when they get out of the tub and do a little bit before they're dried and do a little bit after they're dried? And just, we tend to force it and we aren't realizing we're forcing it.
So it's okay to break it up into little pieces like that.
It's best. Yeah.
One of the cool things the dog learns, I, I've said cool a lot. Apparently,
Mm,
I'm very cool today. One of the
wicked
nice
cool.
things that, yes, the cool kids. One of the
Wicked
nice
cool.
things, wicked cool,
Wicked
wicked.
cool. New
One of the
Englander.
cool, yes, one of the wicked cool things that the dogs learn when you recognize their signals to you and then you back off and give them a break is that they are a participant in the activity. Not that they can say, no, don't do this, but they can say, hey, can you just wait a minute till I'm ready? Sometimes they're just not
Mhm.
quite ready.
And if you're good at watching for those signs, you might find that they can only handle a certain amount of time. It might have nothing to do with the tool. It might be the amount of time we've asked them to do. And if you do notice that they can only handle 2 minutes, then work on that spot for less than 2 minutes. Don't bring them to the breaking point where they ask for a break. Pause before that point, move on to something else, and come back. Set them up for success.
Setting them up for success is so important. And the ability for them to know that they actually have a way to stop you if something is just too much and that you'll respect that. It's worth its weight in gold. For heaven's sakes, it's amazing. So
I think a lot of
repetition.
groomers, oh,
Go ahead.
good. I think a lot of groomers don't know that that dog that did an air snap at you didn't miss. That's a dramatic, big, big version of, oh my God, I need a break. You need to stop. I would hate to have to hurt you. Most of these dogs are not actually trying to injure us. If they do a fast snap and they grab your arm and leave no marks, that was a tremendous amount of self control. And I think we tend to be all willy nilly with our fingers, like, oh, he missed. He didn't miss. If they aren't doing damage, it's because they are trying to communicate to you you've done too much. You're pushing all of my buttons. I'd hate to have to hurt you. Any dog of any size can make themselves totally untouchable. And if you think, oh, I'll just put a muzzle on, they can prevent you from putting a muzzle on. Any dog of any size. Yeah. Vet techs, we know that. I used to be a vet tech too. Like if you've seen a
Absolutely.
dog in full blown panic because they're injured and they're panicking, that's usually when you would see it. They can totally be like trying to trap a rabid raccoon.
And don't go from a nervous dog on the face to then straight to the nails or something like that because stacking can happen. You can end up like stacking stressors on top of stressors and make it a gazillion times worse.
Yep. Which is called trigger stacking, all
Trigger
those little
stacking.
triggers. I find people understand it better if I say, imagine we have a glass and we like one challenge, let's say touching their feet, puts a little bit of water in the glass. And then touching their feet again with the dryer puts more water in the glass. And then we reach for their foot to do a nail trim, and that puts more water in the glass. There's only so much water that can fit in the glass before it spills over. And that's an example of trigger stacking. Like, okay, maybe each of those challenges alone wouldn't have been much, but grooming is an challenge endurance run. We can break those up, or we can start booking differently. I have a couple of dogs that, when we're first getting used to grooming, if nail trimming is the hard part, we might book a different appointment for nail trimming, just so they're not being defensive with every foot touch during grooming. There are lots of ways we can break things up, but part of that is recognizing all of those triggers all at once eventually spill over. And people are like, wow, what happened? I guess he doesn't like having his nails trimmed.
Yeah, forcing through that is not a win. It's
No.
not going to help you in the long run. It's just going to make an adversarial relationship. And our buttons get pushed with dogs that do that. We take it so personally. Like Barbara says, quit taking it personally. We take it
Yeah.
personally. This
Yeah.
dog is fighting me when you don't realize that his teeth are falling out and are covered with tartar, and you're putting your hand right in that spot when you're trying to hold the dog. Stuff like that. I think that it's so
Well,
amazing to be able to learn the communication that they're trying to send our way, pick up on it, honor it, and turn it into something pleasant.
and some of the stuff that I see in our grooming industry, because I have a background where I went to 4 years of animal science at an agricultural high school and actually took like anatomy and physiology classes. I'm seeing groomers doing stuff that I wish more groomers knew how dogs' bodies move. Of
Oh,
course he
yes.
has to wiggle. You have moved his leg in a way his leg doesn't bend. You're asking him to hold his left leg out forward and not be bent at the elbow. He has to sit and he has to torque his back. And when he sits, he leans back because that's how you sit. And they're like, he's pulling against me. I'm like, you need to learn how to work around a dog's body. And yet, what we find, because grooming is an industry where we kind of get mentored by somebody else, it's like run like a medieval guild. And if that'd be fine if we were making candles like we did in the 1500s. But there are people who are fully indoctrinated into methods and information that was outdated before they were born. If you're in your early 20s, you probably are using stuff from the 1900s that we have known is not effective, which is crazy to me. So some of the fighting we're seeing is dogs that just can't bend that way. Or people moving toenails up to like torquing feet so that they can see the nail better. Like, no, you bend, not the dog. You can bend. I'm in my 50s. I can bend.
That was a big challenge with where my table is because I cannot
Oh,
access three sides of my table. It's a big enough table though, so I can kind of turn the dogs and get the into a comfortable position. But as I'm getting older and my hands are less flexible, I was kind of putting them in an awkward position. And I realized it a little while ago when I was getting some fighting or pushback from some of the dogs. And I've adjusted the way I'm standing. I've adjusted the height of the table. I've adjusted the orientation of the dogs. And now everybody's happy again. Got to watch for
nice.
stuff like that.
It's a great reason to video yourself. Even if you're
Definitely.
not sharing it, video yourself and you're like, oh, that was a weird angle. My
Oh, no
biggest thing
wonder.
now when I watch videos of myself, I'm like, I have my table, house call, I have my table down low because it's easier on my shoulder. But ergonomically, it's terrible for my back. So I'm like, do I need to raise that table? But it's a house call table. It's not like I can just raise it and lower it. It's set to one height. And you start noticing those things though. You notice, am I asking this dog to be in a weird position? And sometimes you have to work around the dog. I think we should be teaching more of these dogs to lie down for some of these things. The show world does it. And if you have a little, okay, I'm going to throw Shih Tzus under the bus, but like a dog with really twisted front legs, what do we know about them? We know as they get older, their joints are going to be sore. Just teach that dog to lie down for nails. You would be amazed at how different they are if they aren't in an uncomfortable position while you trim nails. It's about adding that kindness I mean, put the care in pet care. We are trying to help these dogs feel more comfortable with it so that we can do it for their whole life.
And it makes it easier to do our job. It's like getting a raise if you don't have to stress out and fight with a dog. There is the occasional dog that does love to wrestle. You got to kind of know the owner. Like old people dogs, I think old people dogs really like the physicality of a little wrestling sometimes. I take your cue though and do it before or after the groom, not during the groom. I
And
know.
sometimes that's a great reward for them. They're like, oh, wait a minute, because their owners don't kneel on the floor like I do. Some
I was
of
just
some of
gonna
them,
say,
yeah, they're
taking them
like,
for a walk.
what?
Yeah. Oh my God, you can get down to my size and we go for a walk.
I
So,
worked with one little terrier that he had never really played tug, and I can play tug. I like roughhousing with dogs, and I would crank it up to crazy land for him, and he was like, "This has never happened," and it's an outlet. It's something that he actually needs that he wasn't getting. But also, what if the difference between the weird stranger doing all these things on my body that I'm nervous about, or my new weird friend doing all these things on my body that I'm nervous about? It's a huge difference. Our toy breeds, we know toy breeds are like, I love my people, not everybody
my
else.
job. Yep.
Like my
Don't like
people.
those other people.
So become their friend. The terriers. Yeah, if you're not their friend, they might be like, "Oh, who are you?" The herding dogs. I have border collies. If they don't know you, they're like, "Who are you? You don't get to make decisions for me," because they're decision makers. It's what we bred them to do. Go off and make decisions all day on their own. So if you think you're just going to go in and say, "Oh, well, I'm going to do this," a lot of border collies are like, "Yeah, prove it." I don't think you're
Yeah,
fast
let's
enough.
see.
and and that's why groomers sometimes look at me and go, really? Border collies? I'm like, my dogs are good for grooming. But part of that is, are they comfortable with the person? Are they comfortable with the procedures? And if they are uncomfortable, are we willing to listen? We have to be willing to listen. I think people think it's new agey granola crunchy, but did you know? Well, Susie knows, but let's throw it out there for the people out there. Did you know that you could set it up so that every dog that you groom is good for grooming or actively learning to be good for grooming?
Wait, I was going to use a ding, but I lost my ding. Oh, well, there should
Oh
have
no.
been a ding there, but I was on the wrong page.
Ding.
So I really love everything you teach. I mean, I just have been so enlightened in the grooming behavior crossover world. I think it's great. And I think we can have so much effect on these animals. Grooming is not really always the thing they want to do that day when we show up. We show up and they're like, there's Susie. Oh, crap. There's Susie. Like 2 seconds, you watch the change on their face, and it's like they're so disappointed. But then when it's over and they love you and they're so clean and they're happy and they're showing they're humans, it just makes it so much better. And when there's no stress in the middle, like you're talking about, because there does not have to be any
There
stress.
does not
I
have
don't
to
have
be.
stress with any of my dogs. The dogs that
Nope.
started out difficult, they're no longer difficult for me. I worry if they went to someone else because they might not listen to them. But for me,
Hmm.
they have a say, they have a pleasant experience. I have a pleasant experience. We have a pleasant experience together. I mean, it
Yeah.
really is the best job in the world. I'm so grateful to do what I
And
do.
And I think a lot of groomers don't realize that it's the behavior problems that they don't understand how to work on that burn them out. That's where your burnout's coming from. It's not from the dogs who are like, la, 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 do my grooming, right? It's the dogs that are the wild card. I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know what he's going to do. I can't make him look perfect. I need another person over here. Add another strap. That those are the dogs that really frustrate us. That our customers are upset because maybe we haven't communicated well that behavior problems or safety problems. And all right, I'm going to promote my show, but if you go to
Okay.
creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com, I have it on a blog post. It's, well, first of all, it's listed an awful lot, but there's a safety policy that you can start using with your own owners. It's not a contract, but it basically says we use sharp tools and we need to keep your pets safe. And if there is a behavior problem, we're going to slow down, help them be comfortable, and work toward a pleasant experience for the future. And we're going to charge you our hourly rate.
And
Don't
that
do it for
piece of
free.
paper, yeah, that piece of paper opens a dialogue. I think that's the most important thing it does.
It does. Because then
Yeah.
owners say sharp things. You would not believe how many owners have no idea that we're using sharp tools. Other animal professionals, they're like, why would you use something sharp? Can't you use safety scissors or the ball tip shears? I'm like, you can stab somebody with a ball tip shear. If I come at you with that, really? You know, it still slices. Anything that cuts hair can cut a dog. And if they don't know that, they're not aware of the safety issues that we know, but often we're trying to push through to make a perfect trim. And I mentioned before, if you're in your early 20s, so in the late 90s, left a job because they wanted me to make it perfect no matter what.
Well, I couldn't have even done that ever.
Right? Like, all right. And you
Yeah.
got him used to it. And that was good. And we loved that. And that was really, really sweet. But also, he can't go home looking like that. So, in the last minute, all of the work I had done would be undone by forcing him through
Oh,
something at the last minute. And I still see groomers doing it. And I'm like, that's the 1900s. That's not current. That hasn't been current this century. We can do better.
yes.
There is new stuff to learn. Join us. The water's nice. You know that there's new stuff to learn. We need to really prioritize these pets because if we groom them for 15 years, 15 years. So right now, what are we at? June 29th, 2025. Dogs being born right now, we might be grooming them until 2040.
I'd like to think that I keep my dogs. So, yeah, absolutely. I'll be
2040.
80. Yep.
Yeah, 2040. 15 years. Are you going to fight with that dog every grooming for 15 years? Or are you going to spend the first couple of grooming sessions making sure that they learn how to be good for it? Whether they're 5 years old now or not, right? A 5-year-old dog can still learn. That's one of the big myths out there. It's like, he should have learned this when he was a puppy. We can still teach them stuff. We do it a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah. People do have a kind of predisposed notion that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. As a matter of fact, there used to be a saying that was thrown around
Mm,
quite often
used to be.
to
Yeah.
that effect. But the
Yeah.
truth is, when you adopt a dog or when you start with a new dog in your grooming business, you're starting a relationship right then and there. And
Mhm.
even though there may be some baggage, there may be genetics involved, there may be painful issues, but you're getting a basically clean slate to start your relationship with that dog at that moment. We can start teaching how we do things and how they have the opportunity to have an effect on the end result right then and there. Just start from day one. It doesn't matter the age of the dog or the horse or the line.
Um, the other side of that, though, is that if we see puppies, there is a critical phase that's beautiful where they are primed for learning. And if we can teach them at that very early age, sweetie, everything's going to be fine. But what I keep seeing is, oh, well, we do a puppy grooming, which is it's only the bath, the drying, the sandy, the nails, the pads, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, that's a lot to ask of a puppy. We have this opportunity when they're very young to make sure that we're keeping them in their safe zone, in their comfort zone, and that everything they're exposed to is like, okay. There's Temple Grandin talks about fear and seeking, two responses to something new. Am I afraid or am I interested? And some of these dogs, it's just their character to be like, oh, cautious. I have something new. I'm cautious. don't push them. And yet, so often, that's actually what we're doing when they're puppies. Well, he's got to learn. I'm like, oh my God. Oh, stop. Stop. Please make it pleasant when they're little because Mother Nature is telling them all the things that happen when you're young or things that are going to be in your life forever. And we have the opportunity to maybe make it so that they never even thought to be nervous about a dryer.
Yes. That's totally the goal. You want them to love you, to love the experience, to not go put themselves in their crate when you show up at the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want them to
And
come back to you when you let them go after you're done. You want a relationship and a positive relationship. You want to be, for me, I want to be the person the dog looks to when their owner isn't there. I want them to go, what do I do? Or is that scary? I want that to be me. But to do that, you've got to
mhm,
have some relationship, some time spent with the dog, and some positive experiences, including what they're doing on your grooming table.
yeah. And the pleasant experience. Like I said, I've been trying to change the wording. Pleasant experience, like what if we make it so that this has always been okay? I am really, really ticklish. The idea of someone doing a pedicure. I've had a pedicure and I had to keep stopping her like, oh my God, hold on, hold on. I'm really ticklish. And I had to keep stopping. And she was really patient with me because I told her ahead of time, like, I am really, really ticklish. I think about something that you're uncomfortable with, and maybe you don't even know why. Maybe there's some fear of snakes. The people who are afraid of snakes, how many of them have actually been injured by a snake? Is it about being
No,
injured or is it about a fear? And you don't even necessarily know why. But you want someone to hold you down and keep putting snakes on you until you figure it out? That seems mean. It's not kind.
it's funny because we tend to forget the individual part of the dog, or in my case, the horse. Like, for instance, my husband desperately wanted to do what he sees on YouTube all the time, which is go up and give Maisie a big hug around her neck. Maisie is my horse.
Hmm.
Maisie is a lot like me. We're not huggers. She doesn't want a hug on her neck. She doesn't want a cuddle on her face. She wants a pet back by her withers or a gentle stroke on her neck. That's okay if she says, go for it. She's very much a touch my nose horse. She puts her nose in your hand, she'll put her nose on your
Aw.
body. She wants to initiate it. And
Mhm.
because of your teaching, I recognized that early and I was able to explain to my husband, who doesn't like to be hugged by people he doesn't know either, that that's the way she is. And you need to respect that, just like you want people to respect not running in and giving you a hug when they haven't seen you for 6 months. So there's
Yeah.
so much to learn that I have applied into my everyday life from my Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program and my focus on dogs that have a difficult time with the process. And you, Chrissy Newmeyer Smith. We're going to wrap this show up, but I will promise you all who are listening that we will be doing this again and again and again and again until I'm not doing it anymore because I just love spending time with you. So,
We have a lot of
Chrissy,
fun.
yes, uh, the way we exit the show is we just say goodbye and happy grooming and see you next time on the Groom Pod. How do you usually exit the show?
I usually remind everybody that I teach programs through the Whole Pet Grooming Academy, the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program for experienced groomers who want to learn the behavior side. And have a great week.
Bye bye, everybody.